Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of the Best Day Ever podcast. This is a podcast about all things crafty and a glimpse into my crafting adventures, into my crafting journey, but it is also where we celebrate with you why every second spent crafting makes for the best day ever. My name is Trisha, and I can be found on Instagram and Ravelry as Tie Dye Diva. And show notes can be found in the description box for each episode, and also on my blog space, which is tiedyedivacrafts.blogspot.com. And I will link to that location in the show notes. Today is Sunday, May 27th. I always forget to tell the date. And I think that's important because it could give you some perspective on some of the things that I talk about during the episode. I do have show notes, so if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my show notes and my outline, just making sure I don't forget anything today. Today we will discuss some finished objects in crochet, as well as sewing, and a few whips and knitting, and as usual, definitely some acquisitions, some crafty things that I've acquired over the past couple of weeks. But before I get into the actual body of the podcast, let's take care of a couple of business things. It is time for us to draw for the April prize drawing. So we had 14 entries in the Ravelry group, and the random number generator chose number 1, which is Melody. Her Ravelry name is Melody Stitches. And Melody, congratulations, because you won the April prize drawing. And let me just refresh your mind to let you know what you'll be receiving. You're going to be receiving this beautiful skein of Peepaloo Fills sock. It's a beautiful green and specks of darker greens and purples and blues. It's a beautiful skein of sock yarn. And this is her, I'm trying to find the base. It's 80% merino, 20% nylon, and it is a sock weight. The color is Lily Pad, and it's 400 yards. Melody, you will also be receiving this Ravelry project bag, and this Susan Bates stitch holder. These always come in handy. Drop those in your project bag. And yeah, I believe that's it. And I will probably put in a few extra goodies, maybe some teas or some candies for you to enjoy. So again, Melody, congratulations on winning the April prize drawing. So if you have not already, please go over to the Ravelry group and join, and introduce yourself and share with us something really exciting that has happened in your crafting world. I would love to hear about it. Let me tell you what Melody wrote. Melody knitted she said she made a shrug for her youngest granddaughter. So I'm not sure if it was knit or crochet. 2 years ago, she made that shrug. And just this year, 2 years later, her granddaughter came into her, and Melody says she came in and thanked me so sweetly for making her sweater. Her mom says she wears it every time she wears a sleeveless dress. She's a girly girl and loves her dresses, so she wears it quite often. Best day ever. So Melody, thank you so much for sharing your joy of crafting. And yes, those are the moments that really bring so much happiness and joy to us as crafters, when we're able to share our love of crafting with someone else, and when they actually love it just as much, love the finished product as much as we've loved putting it together. So let me also share with you what the May prize will be. We have another week to go, so you have plenty of time to get in to the Ravelry group and share with us something exciting about what's happening in your crafting world. And I will draw for the May prize in early to mid-June. So the skein for the May prize is this beautiful skein of Lemonade Shop sock. It's like a mint green with beautiful speckles, hot pink speckles, some teal aqua speckles, and a little bit of gold in there also. So it's absolutely beautiful skein. I cannot find the tag for this. I'm going to look for it, and if I can't find it, I will definitely create one for you. It's going to come in this Do You Knit project bag with an Eiffel Tower lining, and it also will include some clover. These are circular knitting needle point protectors. It's a set of 2. So yes, just head over to the Ravelry group, join the group, and let us know what you're excited about in your crafting world. I did want to mention that I realized that the past few prizes have been knitting or crochet related, and that they've been yarn. But this is a multi-crafting podcast. So if you happen to win one month and let's say you're not a knitter or a crocheter and you don't have any use for yarn, please feel free to let me know. I will be more than happy to create a package based on what your favorite preference is. I will try my best to do that. Let's say if you're a cross stitcher, a quilter, a garment sewer for that matter. I feel pretty confident that I can accommodate something other than a knitting related prize. So just feel free to let me know that. Let me take a quick look at my notes to make sure that I didn't forget anything else. I think that pretty much wraps it up. So let's get right into the podcast, shall we? The first finished item that I want to share with you is probably something you've already seen if you follow me on Instagram, and that is my Saturday sweater. Let me hold it up so you can see it here. So this is my very first crochet sweater, and I am still just blown away every time I look at this. I absolutely love it. This is a sweater designed by Tamara Kelly. And what I loved about making this, let me tell you what yarn I used. I used Caron Simply Soft, and the color is escaping me. It's this beautiful orange, and I cannot remember the name of the color. It took all of about 3 skeins to make it, and I used a size K hook, which is a 6.5 millimeter needle. One thing that surprised me with crocheting this sweater was I didn't realize till after I was putting my show notes together that Caron Simply Soft is actually an Aran weight yarn. So that would explain quite a few things. Number one, why it worked up so quickly, and number 2, why it was so warm. I decided to test myself out to see if I could get a sweater crocheted up for Maryland Sheep and Wool this year, and I only had a week to do it. So I figured, I knew that none of my wool sweaters were going to work because it was going to be a really warm weekend. So I said, well, let me try this crochet sweater I'd had my eyes on for quite some time, and I'll just grab some acrylic from Michael's and see if I can stitch it up real quick. And I wore it on Saturday to Maryland Sheep and Wool, and I absolutely loved it. I'm going to insert a picture here. But I want to tell you, I was so hot in this sweater. I didn't realize it was an Aran weight yarn, and it's got a lot of mesh, as you can see, but yeah, it's pretty heavy. So thank goodness for the open work on this sweater, because I probably would have had to take it off. And because it does have a lot of open work, of course I had to wear a tank under it, so that was 2 layers. I was pretty toasty, let's just say that, but not so toasty that I had to take it off. And I'm just so proud of myself for, first of all, I'm tackling the project of my first crochet sweater, and for getting it finished in time for Maryland sheep and wool, and I learned a lot. I learned a little bit about constructing a crochet sweater, of course. I learned how to do my seaming, and which is done with the whip stitch. I'd never done that before. And this is my seam line here. I think it looks very seamless. This pattern is a free pattern. You can link to it from Ravelry, but I will definitely include a link to it in the show notes. And Tamara also does a brief video tutorial on how to make this sweater. So if you are thinking about making your first crochet sweater, I highly recommend this pattern. And I highly recommend the Karen Simply Soft yarn. I learned a little bit about constructing a crochet sweater, of course. I learned how to do my seaming, and which is done with the whip stitch. I'd never done that before. And this is my seam line here. I think it looks very seamless. This pattern is a free pattern. You can link to it from Ravelry, but I will definitely include a link to it in the show notes. And Tamara also does a brief video tutorial on how to make this sweater. So if you are thinking about making your first crochet sweater, I highly recommend this pattern. And I highly recommend the Karen Simply Soft yarn. I don't know what's gotten into me. I would say about 3 months ago, I would not have dreamed of buying a sweater quantity of acrylic yarn. But I've been watching a lot of other crochet podcasts where the content is really heavy with crocheting. And of course, Kalisha's podcast, or the Quirky Monday, is the name of her podcast. And they have really inspired me to think twice about how I feel about acrylic yarns. Do I prefer it over natural fibers? Absolutely not. But I am starting to realize that acrylic, just like cotton and sewing, just like silk and sewing, just like superwash yarns and just like non-superwash yarns, have their place depending on the project and depending on the intent for the use. They all have their place. And so I'm glad that I gave this yarn a try. Would I buy it again for another crochet sweater? Probably so. Probably so. So I have this little pin. I should have bought it up here. It says Death by Acrylic. I'm going to try to insert a picture of it here. So I may have to actually give that pin up, because I might have just bought another sweater quantity of acrylic yarn from Michael's this weekend. So yes, the Saturday sweater, very, very happy about that. The second finished object that I want to share with you is also in crochet. I don't know what's coming over me. I don't feel so confident to say that I'm stepping over to the crochet side, but it's taking up just as much of my crafting time as is knitting. So as I was becoming more and more interested in the craft of crochet, I got to thinking, because one thing that is so appealing to me about it is, of course, how quickly your projects go by. And so I was thinking about one of my favorite knitting shapes for shawls, which is the asymmetric shape shawls that start out narrow and they increase and become wider and wider at the other end. And so I did some research on how to create that same shape for crochet, and I gathered up all of my scraps of natural color or close to neutral color, DK weights and worsted weights, and I experimented and created this shawl. So this was my starting point, and this was just some worsted weight wool that I had in my stash. This is a DK weight that I had. This DK weight, I think, is Plum Street Fiber Arts, and it's made its way in so many of my patterns, but it's completely gone. I think I had 2 skeins of it, so this shawl used the very last of it. I think this is some Patton's wool, some Patton's worsted weight wool. This is an Araucania worsted weight wool that was left behind from a D-stash we had. Our knitting group had a D-stash. This here is some Knit Picks tweed, which is an Aran tweed. That was left over from a poncho I made last year. I don't know if you can see the flecks of tweed in there. This is a wool and alpaca blend. This is some more, I believe this is some more Patton's worsted weight wool. And this little bright spot here is some Brooklyn tweed shelter that I had left over from a project. I believe that's Hayloft is the color. And this black, I really don't know what this is. I almost want to say this is Patton's also. And then I ended it in this oatmeal that you saw back earlier in the shawl at the end. So I'm calling this my Stitch Sampler Asymmetric Crochet Shawl. I gotta come up with a shorter name, right? So most of this is double crochet, with the exception of the very end, which I might have some treble crochets in here, and I've definitely got some mesh in here where I did some chaining and some skipping over stitches to create more of an open work there. And I believe that these 2 rows here with the Brooklyn tweed are single crochet, and some more open work here, and I ended it with some shells and a picot. And I absolutely love the picot. So let me just try to get this in camera so you can get a perspective on the size of it. And then it ends in this. I absolutely love this shawl. And I'm going to try to, I would definitely be making another one and write up the instructions for how I made it. But this is how I envision wearing this, or having the person I gifted to wear it. Basically the same way you would wear a knit shawl with the same shape. Just hang it over your shoulder. Let as much of the color, as many colors as you can come through, and have the picot edge just hanging off on the side. I'm going to try to stand for a second just so you can get some perspective on that and how it looks in the back. I love this. It's so cozy and warm. And I soaked it in tough woolens, of course, blocked it in tough woolens. And I love it. I love it. I can so totally see using some worsted weight gradient kits for this. Or like I said, your scrap yarns would work really, really well with this. So I absolutely love it. And I'm going to take it off because it is a warm day in the DMV. We've got the AC cranking today. We've got some company about to come over shortly, so I always like to make sure that it's nice and cool in the house. But yes, this is my Stitch Sampler Crochet Shawl, and I love it. And I'm going to be working on another one, and hopefully writing up some instructions for what I did for that shawl. So let's get into some works in progress in knitting. Hanging out in my French Supply fill bag, my orange French Supply fill bag bedecked with pins. I think this is my latest pin there, the Brown Girls Knit pin. I love this. Big afro with the knitting needle sticking out. Fun, fun. This is my Millie sweater that I'm working on. I shared in the last recording about a sweater, an orange fingering weight sweater that I had started. I frogged that. It just was not working out. So just in case you were wondering, it no longer exists because it just wasn't working out. And I just realized I have dropped a stitch. So bear with me for a second while I pick up these 2 stitches. Maybe those point protectors that I put in for the prize drawing, Maybe I should be keeping those for myself, huh? Anyway, here we go. Okay, so this is the front of the sweater here. It's so hard to show projects. I'm not even going to try to show you the shape because it's pretty futile when the stitches are all bunched on the needle, but I will show you this beautiful yarn that I'm using. This is Nice and Knit fingering weight, and the color is Crab Cake. And I picked this up at the pop-up shop at the yarn shop, the Knot House in Frederick. Can't believe I almost forgot that name. And this is the yarn, the Crab Cake colorway. It's picking it up pretty good. Yeah, this is even better. Okay, so you can clearly see that one skein is definitely a little darker than the other. So I am alternating skeins, and I'm hoping to leave a good portion of the darker skein for the ribbing on the cuffs as well as the ribbing on the bottom of the sweater. It's a very easy to follow pattern, and it what else can I say about it? The yarn is wonderful. The yarn and needle combination is wonderful. I didn't tell you what needles that I'm using. I'm using the Licca needles. There we go here. I love these needles. They're wonderful, smooth join. And yeah, so I was going to mention a little tip that I have discovered. If you are working with a yarn that you and you're kind of struggling with it, then think about changing your needle. Sometimes just changing the needle in your project makes all the difference in the world. So this yarn is it's a light fingering, so it's very soft, so it's a bit slippery. So I figured using the wooden needle, the Licca needle, which also has a smooth surface, but just the perfect amount of drag to help with the slipperiness of the yarn. So again, if you're working with a needle and yarn combination that's just not working for you, then just think about switching up that needle, because sometimes that makes all the difference in the world. This is the Millie sweater that I'm working on, so you can get a feel for what it's going to look like. You see that these increases come down quite a ways to make up the dolman sleeve, and it's got ribbing on the bottom as well as the neckline, and there's some pictures of another one on the back. I'm going to knit mine down quite a bit longer, maybe more so like this length here, and my sleeves might be a little shorter just depending on how much yarn I have left over. But I'm really enjoying that project, having a lot of fun with it. It's what I would call mindless knitting, a very simple to follow increase sequence. So I highly recommend the yarn as well as the pattern. So thank you, ladies of Nice and Knit, for that. And I'm going to have a sip of tea in my new mug that I found yesterday at the dollar store of all places. So of course I like to fell over when I saw it. It's so cute. And today I'm having some blueberry green tea from Harney and Sons. This is one of my favorite tea makers. Very good. Blueberry with green tea. Very nice. My second work in progress in knitting is something that I cast on since my last episode also. This is an epic project for a lot of reasons. Number one, well, let me just tell you what it is. This is a shawl. It's a worsted weight shawl, and you'll achieve that worsted weight by holding 2 skeins of fingering together. And the name of the shawl is Stevie. I'm going to try to insert a picture of the actual shawl here. And here is a picture, and here is my Stevie that I am making. I don't know if you can tell by looking at this how gigantic this shawl is. And that is not a complaint in any way. I love a big shawl that I can just wrap myself up into. Um, this is something I'm going to cherish for a very long time. I'm using Plucky Feet and Plucky Primo fingering, holding the two together and going from dark to light and then from light to dark. I have one more of these sections left over, and then it ends in a fringe, as you could see from the picture. And it's just so wonderful. I mean, what more could you ask for? Just the squish factor of holding two strands of an MCN base together. And I'm using a size 8 US 8 needle, and I don't know if I wrote the millimeter down for this. I guess as I do this more often, I'm going to get the millimeters. Maybe I'll memorize them. It's a 5.0 millimeter needle, and I'm also using the Lica needles for this. I have an interchangeable set of the Lica needles, so they really come in handy. So I'm really feverishly working hard to get this finished because I want to wear it to a very special event that I'll be attending this weekend, and I'll tell you about that towards the end of the podcast. But yes, I love it. I absolutely love it. This is definitely for me. The crochet shawl might go into the gift pile, but this is definitely for me. I think that's all I have to share with you about that, but I would definitely link to the pattern. Yeah, if you've got a favorite color, and you've got a lot of sock yarn you're trying to knit up, I highly recommend this pattern. Huge stash buster for this. Again, the Plucky Stevie shawl. And this is hanging out in a project bag that I made a couple of months ago. I made this bag to house some of my larger sweaters. And this is definitely the size I need for this shawl. So yes, that's the Stevie. I think that's all I have to share with you as far as crochet and knit. So now let's move into a little bit of sewing. So again, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably already saw a dress that I finished. And yes, here's the pattern. The pattern is from McCall's, and the pattern number is MP220. And the view that I did is this view here, which I believe is view B. And what you need to make this, it's described as a pullover dress, close fitting through the bust. I can say that's accurate. With a neckband, sleeve, and hemline variations. And the suggested fabric is a cotton knit or a cotton jersey. So you definitely need a knit to make this pattern, and you can see it comes with a couple of other options there. So let me show you my dress. I'm going to stand up so I can grab it off of the closet here. I'm so proud of this dress for so many reasons. First of all, I sewed this almost 100% on the serger. All the seams were done on the serger, so everything is completely finished off. There is a seam down the middle as well as down the back. It's quite flowy and drapey. The print is a butterfly print, golds and purples and reds and blacks and blues. And I finished off the sleeve. This was a modification that I did. I finished off the sleeves with this beautiful lace that I found from a local independent fabric store not far from me called Paradise Fabrics. And I also finished the bottom hem with that same lace. I hope that's showing up. I really don't know what's come over me in the past few years. I'm just loving some lace here lately. I always joke and I say lace is to sewing what bacon is to eating. You know, it just makes everything better, right? So look at that. So beautiful. And I'm going to insert a couple of pictures of me wearing this dress. One thing that I'm on like a quest, I guess you could say, for really trying to define a personal style. I know what I love and what I'm comfortable in at this stage in life, and it's very comfortable, flowy clothes. I'm over tight waistbands, and I just like flowy, cool fabrics that drape and flow off of my body. No guilt, no shame about body shape or body type. I just had an aha moment not long ago that all the what other people might consider, and even what I at one time considered a flaw in my body shape, is really, it really tells a story. So I tend to carry a lot of weight in my back, for example, and that's a hereditary factor. My mom has that shape, as well as the women on my dad's side. So what can I do about that? That's what I inherited. I also carry a lot of weight in my midsection. So I guess you're probably thinking that means you're, yes, I'm round. I'm definitely an apple shape. And it's definitely not one of my favorite parts of my figure, but seriously and honestly thinking. So this belly is what carried a set of twins, which are my most prized possession, my boys who are now 27 years old. This belly has endured 3 abdominal surgeries. So I should probably not be so hard on myself. I guess it's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be the flat belly that I want. So I need to just embrace it and just understand why I have the figure and the build that I do, and just realize that this body deserves to be clothed in what it loves. And so that's what I'm trying to figure out, trying to develop a style and trying to figure out what type of clothes look the best on my body shape, and what type of clothes complement my body shape, and what type of clothes I feel the most comfortable in, which may not be the latest fashion trend, but that's okay. That's okay. And that's why we're so blessed to be able to know how to sew, to know how to knit. And that same thing goes for the things that I knit. Really working on not just making the most popular knitting pattern of what's out there. If it's a shawl and it only takes 400 yards, that's not a shawl for me. That's a neck scarf. Okay, so, and that's, sometimes that's okay, and I may knit those, but not with the realization that it's going to wrap around me and keep me cozy. I need a larger shawl to do that, such as the Stevie. The Millie sweater that I'm knitting, I'm hoping that that kind of like drapes over my body and gives me, and just, I think the silhouette of it would definitely complement my figure. So, if you're still here, thank you for sticking around on that little tangent about self-love and yeah, and just really taking the skill that we have and putting it to good use, and developing a handmade wardrobe that we absolutely are proud of and love. And this dress is definitely a step in that direction. I was just at Joann Fabrics this weekend, and they are having a pattern sale. Yes, McCall's patterns were three patterns for $5, which is a steal. So again, that's McCall's Ep.5. It's one of those staple dresses that I can see myself making lots and lots of. I also shared with you on the last episode that I wanted to make a pair of gingham black and white pants. I have those cut out. They are almost completely sewn, and I definitely hope to be able to share those with you on the next episode. Let's take a quick peek at the notes to see what else I have on the agenda. Let's talk about a few acquisitions. And I'm kind of hesitating because I was so excited in my haste to show you the Stevie shawl. I didn't show you what colors that I'm using in the shawl. I will definitely do that on the next episode, I promise. Okay, so one acquisition I'd like to share with you are the contents of my Finch box. Finch is a sewing studio in Leesburg, Virginia. It would be fun if I could show you what I got in the latest box. And with my next box, I might even decide to put together a video for an unboxing of the Finch box. So in this month, it included a Loopy Mango project bag. Loopy Mango is a yarn company out of New York, and they specialize in super bulky yarns. They may have some worsted weights, but for the most part, they specialize in the bulky and super bulkies. So what they included this time was this beautiful skein of 100% merino. This is a merino number 5. The color is iceberg. It's 74 yards, and I'm almost sure this is a super bulky weight. And it also includes this tiny skein here for a pom-pom and the pattern to make this hat, which is just adorable, and also the needles to make the hat. I'm not sure what brand of needles these are, but they are a size 15, 16 inch. And I don't know, they're really pointy, so it seems like they would work really, really well for this fabric. What other things do they include here? Definitely the pattern to make the hat. And information about Finch. I will link to Finch Sewing Studio. One other thing that's included is this cute little bag that the needles came in. It's a little sheep with a backpack. And it says made for making. So that came in the mail since the last episode, or either I had it and am just taking the time to open it. I really like to savor my packages when they come in the mail. Sometimes I'll let things sit for a couple of weeks. I just like to be calm and maybe have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea beside me while I'm opening up my yarny packages. There's another picture of the hat. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the pom-pom. I will probably maybe just trim the brim in the pink. We'll see. And this is nice. Pom-pom bead. I'm not sure if this is, oh, so this is the pattern. This is actually the pattern right here of the pom-pom beanie. And I certainly hope this, okay, so it looks like they've given me 2 copies of the pattern. One larger copy and one pocket-sized copy. So that's pretty nice. Another fun thing I acquired was this cotton, 100% cotton from Hobby Lobby, because I am still working on my washcloths for the Yarn Hoarder Dishcloth Challenge. And this is called the Secret Garden Cotton, but it's speckled. Look how beautiful that is. So I thought this was fun. I can't wait to make these 2 up into some cotton dishcloths or washcloths. So that's it for acquisitions. I've been really trying to tame my spending because of a very special event that I'm going to be attending this coming weekend in Hastings, Michigan. If you follow the Plucky Knitter on Ravelry or on Instagram, you will know that after many years of a extremely successful hand dyeing business, she and her sister have decided to open up a brick and mortar in Michigan. And they're going to have an open house as well as a pop-up shop there at the brick and mortar store. And I believe the name of they gave it a name. I think it's Plucky HQ2, like Plucky Headquarters number 2. In any event, I'm going to celebrate with them the grand opening. And in commemoration of the grand opening, there are going to be 2 evening events, one on a Friday night, one on a Saturday night. And I was very fortunate to get tickets to both events. One is a movie knit night, and the other is a cocktail reception. So I am just so over the moon excited about that. I'm just so proud of Sarah and Haley for what they have accomplished with their hand dyeing business. It's just incredible, and I'm just so happy to be going. My husband and I are going to take a road trip, and we're going to just go and get on the road and break it up. Maybe spend the night in Ohio and wake up on Friday morning and get back on the road again. So I will be sure to tell you all about it when I return. I may pick up some fun little things for giveaways for the podcast. But yes, that's why I'm working really hard to finish the Stevie shawl, because I want to wear it to the pop-up event. So, stay tuned on my Instagram feed. I'll be posting pictures. I may even decide to do something live from the event if I get the permission of Sarah and Haley to do that. And yes, so excited about that. I think that is all I have to share with you this episode. I don't have any particular podcast shout outs, but I will tell you a particular podcast that I watch on a regular, which is the Fruity Knitting Podcast. Their last episode, they featured a story called Knitting Behind Bars. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend it. If you're not necessarily a fan of the Fruity Knitting Podcast, just watch that episode. It is so inspiring and so breathtaking. Just the story. I won't go into much detail about it, but you can just tell by the subject that you're probably already intrigued. If you get to watch it, then leave a comment in the show notes. Not the show notes. Leave a comment in the show notes, or leave a comment in the Ravelry group, because I always create a thread if you have some questions or comments about the episode. So I hope that until the next time I see you, you have lots of fun in your crafting world. I have quite a few things that I have coming down the pike, new things I want to try, lots of knitting, lots of sewing, and I am very excited to continue to share all of those things with you. So until next time, keep knitting, keep crocheting, keep crafting, and remember that every second spent crafting makes for the best day.